Hey Porter, pretty early. I'm gonna hide my screen for a minute. I still got 9 minutes to get things together here, so I will be right back. Hello, everybody. Looks like you guys have been talking. Happy Easter, everyone. Yep, you're getting close. Today's lesson is not going to be tough. You'll be able to get this done real quick, hopefully. And we'll start more tough things next week on Tuesday. But yeah, should be pretty easy. All right, so there's a few things we want to go over today, and that is making fractions to percents, and there's a few different ways that your book shows you how to do this, and some of it I don't really know why it's telling you to do, but we're going to look at that, and then we're going to look at comparing them and ordering them, which is pretty easy. So part one is fractions to decimals to percents. Part two is going to be putting them in order, saying, hey, which one's bigger, which one's smaller. If you did this and you don't have any questions on it, no, you're good. You can do something else right now. I mean, it's really easy. Do you need to take notes? You probably have all the notes. The homework is workbook page 200. So if you can do workbook page 200, you can do this. It's not easy. The notes, again, all my percent notes are in that PowerPoint that I keep linking, so you have all that there. But let's look at going from a fraction to a percent, and let's do it a few different ways. The easiest way to do this is to just set up a proportion and cross multiply. Just remember that percents are parts of 100. So if I want to go to a fraction to a percent, I'm actually going to skip the decimal stage here. And I'm just going to say, hey, this is equal to another fraction with the denominator of 100. And whatever your numerator is going to be your percent. It's really that simple. So this here is your unknown percent. We've been doing this for a few days already. So hopefully it's starting to stick. But you just cross products. So 5 times 100 gives you 500. 8 times x gives you 8x. And then you're going to divide. Today you should be getting decimal answers. So we are just going to get, what this means, this is just how you're going to take a fraction, turn it into a decimal, and then turn it into a percent. So we're starting with fractions today, and we want to end up with decimals and percents. Our long-term goal is to get the percent. However, you can skip the decimal point by doing it this way. And then the book has you, for some strange reason, wanting you to write percents with fractions, which is fine, but it's easier to just do decimals for percents. But I'll show you, and then you'll have the choice of however you want to actually display it. But here we're solving for x, so we're going to divide by 8 on this side, get x by itself, divide by 8 on this side. This is going to cancel, leave you with x, and this is going to give you 62.5 maybe? 62.5. And so 5/8 is equal to 62.5%. Once you get the percent, you can easily make the decimal like we did on Monday or Tuesday and move your decimal point out. So, you know, once, twice becomes 0.625 as a decimal. Just being able to convert between the three forms is going to be necessary in order to order things and in order to do some calculations further down the road. Actually, the book is going to have you take it to the decimal first and then to the percent. And that means, well, one way the book is showing you is to take 5/8, so method 2. So you could do it this way. This is method 1. Hey, I got all 3 of them. That's our goal. I get all 3 of them. I have it as a fraction, I have it as a percent, I have it as a decimal. That's one method to do it. So I guess I'll call this method 1. That's the way I do it. A fractional percent is just a percent with a fraction. You could write this as a fractional percent. Right, this here is the same thing as 62.5%. This is what the book means by a fractional percent, which again, I don't know why you would choose this over this, but maybe you would. Just so you know, they are the same thing. So method 2 is going from 5/8 to the decimal first. And you can take this as a decimal because this is the same thing as 5 divided by 8, which again would be 5 divided by 8. And if you carried that out, you would get your decimal, which was 0.625. And then you can turn your decimal into a percent by moving this twice this way. So you could do the division first. Isn't it 7/8? No, it started with 5/8. I just picked a random fraction. I don't know what the book says. Yeah, problem 1 in your homework is 7/8. So yeah, you should be doing 7/8. So you should be able to do 7/8 based on how I did 5/8. I mean, the other way you do this is just in your head. You should know that 1/8 equals 0.125. You want 7 of them, so multiply that by 7. Here we wanted 5, so we multiply this by 5, and you get 5/8. That's just fraction work. Yeah, I thought it was pretty easy. But I mean, you can choose either way to do this. It's just asking you for the percent and the decimal. So if you want me to do the one on the book, because everyone's saying, hey, do number 1. Number 1 in the book was, what was it, Finn? 7/8? 7/8. Make this a decimal. Then make that decimal a percent. Or make this a percent. Then make it a, was it decimal? A fractional percent is just a percent with a fraction in it. Does it say make it a fractional percent in there? That's 21. I'll get to 21. It's nothing you haven't been doing. I'll get to it in a second here. I'll walk you through this one again. So again, I want this as a fraction, which it gives it to you, so that's 7/8, as a decimal, and as a percent. All right. One way to do it is to find the percent first. So I can do that by setting up the proportion and getting your percent up here. So that becomes 700 equals 8x. Divide that by 8. Divide that by 8. 700 divided by 8 gives me 87.5. So x equals 87.5. This number here is your percent. It's already out of 100, so this gives you 87.5%. And then to get the decimal, you can either divide this out to get the decimal, or you can move your decimal point 2 places away from the percent sign to get your decimal. So this would be 0.875. And again, you could do it from the fraction or you can do it from the percent. I think it's easier to find the percent first and then get the decimal out of it. And then to make things fractions, if it gives you a decimal, you can just put it over the last place value. Things like that. Number 4. I'm not looking at the homework here. Yeah, I'll do 3. I'll do 3 and 4 because of that fractional percent thing. it's just a weird word. So it wants you to take, for 3, it wants you to take that 1/16th, and turn it into a decimal and a percent. Does it say both? I don't know what it says. It wants you to turn it into into a percent, but doesn't want you to write the percent with a decimal. It wants you to write the percent with a fraction. That's all that means. So we want to make this a percent first. So we can go ahead and make that a percent by cross multiplying, because again, percents are parts of 100, so your denominator is always going to be there, and your percent's always going to be 100, and your percent's always going to be on top. So you get 16x equals 100. Then you're going to divide both sides by 16. And you're going to get x equals 100 over 16, whatever that answer is. You can solve that out, which gives you the decimal. 100 divided by 16 is going to give you that 6.25. And then that's your percent. Is 6.25%, but it wants this number to be a fraction. So you have to take that decimal number in the percent and make that a fraction. So that's the same thing as 6 1/4%. And the only difference is that I took 25 hundredths and made it 1/4. You could keep, that's why I kept it like this. You can then say, okay, how many times does 16 go into 100? Well, you probably want to reduce that first. So if I divide each by 4, I get 25 fourths. How many times does 4 go into 25? 6 times total, and there is 1 left over, because 6 times 4 is 24. So that's where my 6 1/4% comes from. It just wants you to write your percent with a fraction instead of a decimal. So this is technically the answer it wants. However, I don't know why you would ever use this over this. It's just that because percents being parts of 100, you're just moving decimal points. Why would you not write it with the decimal point? I don't understand that. But you technically could. It's just this is probably going to make more sense to you. Number 4. Number 4 says, what is it, 1/32? 1 over 32. So again, find the percent of it. 100 equals 32x. Divide each by 32. Divide by 32. I mean, you should know how to get them. I'm probably never going to ask you again to look at them that much. Lyra, fractional percents. If you can get the decimal percent, that's probably even better. But we'll put them as fraction, because all what it is turning the decimal into a fraction after you're done. Hi, Random Will. I'm teaching 6th grade right now. Here we got, what am I doing here? We got 100 divided by 32. Again, you can reduce that. Well, here, this is going to cancel, leave you with x. This gives you 100 over 32. Here you're going to take this fraction and you're going to divide it out, get the decimal for it if you want, or because it's asking you for a fractional percent, just keep it in the fraction form there. So here we're going to take, we can reduce that if you want to keep it in the fraction. You can take out 4 from each. So 100 over 32 is going to be, divide that by 4, divide this by 4. You're going to get 25 over 8. How many times does 8 go into 25? That is 3 with 1/8 left over. So your answer is 3 1/8%. However, if you took that as a decimal, you would have gotten 3.125%. So either one is really fine. And, you know, it works out. Any other questions about fractional percents? Okay. Let's get into ordering them then, because the second part of your work is going to ask you to put them in order. So let's pull up a random problem here. Let's look at 0.65, 75%, and 9/10. Logan, we'll get to two. Let me get through some ordering first, and then I'll answer questions about your homework. Okay, so here we're going to look at, instead of converting them, we want to order them, which we're going to need to convert before we do that. So order, is it ER? I don't know. So we need to make a decision on how you want to write all these. You can either write them all as percents, write them all as decimals, or write them all as fractions, but you need to find some kind of common way to display each of the numbers. It's probably easiest to get to decimals and then order your decimals, but we're going to look at percents today because that's kind of what our lesson's about. So step one here is going to make them all the same. So we can go over here and be like, step one, write them in the same form. And it really doesn't matter which form you like. If you like fractions, write them as fractions. If you like decimals, write them as decimals. If you like percents, write them as percents. I'm going to go with percents today just because we've been practicing and percents are kind of the new one. But any way you want to do it, it's going to work out as long as whichever one you can deal with for whatever you're more comfortable with. So I'm going to do percents. 75 is already written as a percent, so underneath it, I don't want to use a division sign. I'm just going to use an arrow and be like, hey, I turned this into a percent, 75%. I'm going to turn this into a percent, which is really simple because you multiply by 100, move your decimal point twice, and you get 65%. Right? Then 9/10, if you want to turn 9/10 into a percent, again, you can cross multiply to do it. 9 times 100 is 900. 10 times x equals 10x. Get x by itself, divide by 10, divide by 10, you get 90 equals x. So this is 90%. And then you just put them in order. Pay attention on how it asks you to do it. Let's say we're going least to greatest. We're going to sit in here and we're going to do which one's the smallest out of all of them. The 65% is the smallest. It's written as the 0.6, so 0.65 is first. Then you get to 75%. I guess these ones were in order. And finally the 9/10. This was just a random problem, Kelsey. I wasn't doing anything special. I was just showing you how to order them. So that's pretty much how you do it. You're going to write them all in one form, and then you're going to, step 2 would be compare them. But you need to write them in the same form. You can't compare 9/10 to 75%. I think Logan asked for number 2 a whole bunch of times. I gotta bring up that page again. Number 2 is asking us to write, is that 11/16? Write it as a fraction. Well, it doesn't ask you to write it as a fraction, it gives it to you as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. So 11/16 is 11/16 as a fraction. To get the percent, you're going to cross multiply, put 100 on the bottom, put x on top. 16 times x is 16x. 11 times 100 is 1100. Divide that by 16, divide this by 16. 16s will cancel, leave you x. 1100 divided by 16 is giving me 68.75, so that's my percent. So my percent is 68.75%. And then to make the decimal, we're just going to take that 68.75% and write it as a decimal. This is the same thing as, or I'm sorry, yeah, I guess we are going to just write it as a decimal. So that's going to take 68.75, and you're going to move your decimal point once, twice to get there, to get the decimal of it, so 0.6875. So there's number 2 for you. It's asking for these two answers. It gives you the 11/17. So number 7, Catherine, I think, asked for number 7, or Anna did. So Anna, here's number 7. Again, your goal is to write them all in the same form. So I'm going to write each of them as a percent. You're more than welcome to write them as fractions or decimals. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to choose percent because we're practicing with percents. So I'm going to rewrite everything as a percent. So here, this is 85%. I already know that. This one here as a percent is 55%, because again, you just move the decimal point 2 places, multiply it by 100, you get the percent. 3/10 as a percent, I'm going to come over here, and if you can't do this in your head, right, I'm going to cross multiply for it, or you could simply just write this as a decimal and then as a percent, which is probably easier. But 3 times 100 gives you 300. 10 times x gives you 10x. Divide that by 10, get x by itself, and you're left with, what was that, 30 equals x. So this is equal to 30%. And then it's asking you to put them in order. Yeah, your answer should be in original form, Eli. So you should be writing these numbers, not these ones. But you're going to put them in order, so I don't know which way it asks you to do it. It just asks you to put them on a number line. It just asks you to put them on a number line, so I'm not sure which ones are given to you in there. It's written weird. You can just put them in order. I don't care if you use the number line or not. This is 30% is first, so if we have a number line, boom. 30% comes first, next comes 55%, next comes 85%, and so on. Any other questions on that? No. This is the answer to 7. It asks you to put it on the number line. 30 is part of the answer. You need to get 30 out of the 3/10 to get that. Number 10. Okay, this says 2 ways to name fraction with a denominator that is not a factor of 100. So the denominator cannot be a factor of 100, so let's pick a number. Explain 2 ways to rename a fraction with a denominator that's not 100. So let's pick a... Well, we've been doing a lot of 8s lately. 8 is not a factor of 100. So we got, I don't know, we can do 3/8. We haven't looked at 3/8 today, have we? Okay, so we want to rename this as, you can either, one, there's 2 ways to do this, right? So the first way is as a decimal, and the second way is as a percent. So those are your 2 ways. So the first way to do it, as a decimal, you can write something along the lines of divide. 3/8 can be written as a decimal by dividing 3 divided by 8. So there's one way to do it. The other way is to do a percent, and you can also say that 3/8 can be written as a percent by well, one way to do it is writing as a decimal, then converting to a percent by multiplying by 100, and that would work. If you can read my stylus handwriting there. Yeah, Catherine, you can write just 30, 55, 85 with that. All right, let's look at 8. All right, Logan. We'll get to 4 after this, Anna. I thought I already did it, but we'll get to it again. Logan wants 8. So we want to take all of these and we want to turn them into percents. That's how I was doing it today. Again, you could have took them all and turned them into decimals if you wanted, but let's turn them into percents. So this as a percent is just going to be 22%. This as a percent, you're just going to multiply it by 100, so that gets moved twice, so that becomes 60%. And this as a percent, again, you're going to come over to the side, write it with a denominator of 100. That's times 4. That's times 4. So this is 40. 36. So that's 36%. And then you just put them in order from least to greatest. It tells you to do it on a number line. So you have a number line here. Whichever box is furthest left is the smallest, which is 22%. Then the middle would be 36%. And then on the end would be the 60%. But it wants you to write it using these numbers, so we're just going to convert them back. 22% is 22%. 36% is the 9/25ths. And 60% is there's a decimal there, 0.6. So follow those ones. Can we stop talking with strangers over the internet, please? Just ignore him. If he has a question about math, he can ask that. Other than that, don't talk to him. What do we got? Anna wanted 4. Thought I already did 4. 1/32. Wants you to write that as a percent, but your percent has to have a fraction in it. It wants it to be a fractional percent. So what you're going to do is you're just going to find the percent. 100 equals 32x. Divide each by 32. Divide by 32. You're going to get 100 divided by 32 gives you 3.125%, but it wants you to write that with a fraction. So 3 is your whole number, 0.125. You're going to take that part, put it over 100, and reduce, which gives you 1/8. So it's 3 1/8%. Yeah, I'm just doing all your homework, guys, today. Let's see, number 9. Okay, so it's saying that someone jogged, just paraphrasing, we jogged 3/8 of a mile and walked the rest of the mile. So if we jogged 3/8 of the mile, the rest of the mile would be the remaining eighths. So 8/8 has to equal 3/8 plus x/8. And you can solve that way, or you can just do, 8 minus 3. But x here is going to equal 5/8. Technically we want just x there, because we want the denominator with it. But x is going to equal 5/8, and then you just want to take 5/8 and make it into a percent, which again, set that equal to x over 100. You get 500 equals 8x through cross multiplying. Divide that by 8, divide this by 8. 500 divided by 8 is going to give you 60x equals 62.5%. And it might ask you to do it as a fraction, so that's 62 1/2%, because 0.5 is 1/2. Any other questions with it? I feel like we've done every single problem on there. All right, if you have no further questions, I'm going to end it. If you need to, oh, number 8 or 5, really? We'll start with 8. Do them all. You guys are ready for your break. What does number 8 say? Didn't I already do number 8? I swear I did number 8 already. 0.6, 22%, and 9/25. Again, you want to order them, so write them in as percents. This is 60%. This is 22%. 9/25 is 36%. And then you just write them on the number line in order, but use the actual thing. So 22% is first. That's written as 22%. 36% is second. That's written as 9/25. And 60% is last, and that's written as 0.6. So there's 8. I already did that. You can rewind the video and watch it later if you still need it. 5 and 6. What is 5 saying? 5 is saying 9/32, and 6 is saying 9/40. That is a 9. So again, all what you're going to do is write them as a decimal, or write them as a percent, sorry. Times 100, 900, that's an x, equals 32 over x. Or, and then divide by 32, divide by 32. This is going to cancel, leave you with x. 900 divided by 32 gives you 28.125, and then you want to write that as a fraction. So you're going to do 28 and technically 125 over 100, which is going to reduce down to 28 1/8%. So that's your technical answer there. Over here, same deal. 9 times 100 is 900. 40 times x is 40x. Divide that by 40. Divide this by 40. 900 divided by 40 equals 22.5x. So that's 22.5%, which is also 22.5%. And that's the answer at once. All right, hopefully you don't have any other questions on them because I did every single problem on that page for you. Make sure you get in. Enjoy your break, guys. If you have further questions, send me an email. But I'm going to end it there. So thanks. So long.